All right, this is Dr. Hallman again, and here we are in week 7, where we're talking about behavioral rating scales. Um, so I use these quite a bit in my practice, and there are a couple different ways you can use these. This can be used as part of that initial clinical interview, and it can give the counselor who ends up taking the case some ideas about where to start. For example, in working with children and adults, I like the Achenbach measures, which they have the adult self-report. And it gives you ideas about whether they might have attention problems, thought disorders, aggressive behavior, rule-breaking behavior, addictions problems. It's a really casting a really wide net. So that's one way you can use them. Another way is using behavioral outcome measures across sessions. When I worked at campus clinics, we had basically the idea was we would see anyone in the community, but part of the deal was you're at a training clinic, and so you had to fill out assessments every 10 weeks. And so you could sort of chart whether someone was getting better or worse across time. And so that would be something I discuss with the client, talk about, here's where we are now. How does this fit with you? Another thing that's really interesting to do is get behavioral outcome measures from multiple informants. So I, I talk about kids a lot because that's what I specialize in working with. But for a child, I might get one from mom and one from dad and one from a teacher, or if they're like in middle school, two teachers. And what I find is sometimes the home, everything's fine, and school, there's a problem, which could mean a couple of things. Could mean the parents aren't ready to accept or have different standards for behavior. It could mean there's an environmental difference between home and school which is causing the problem, or it can signal a disruption in the relationship with a teacher. And especially I like to get two teachers because then you can see, is this someone that just has a bad relationship with the child, or is it pretty consistent across classes? Um, so those are some good ways to use behavioral outcome measures. Some of the more popular ones I've used are the Symptom Checklist 90 revised, the Adult Self-Report, the Adult Behavior Checklist, which is another adult filling one out on a spouse, a friend, something like that. Also, yeah, the thing that I think is important with these, and whenever you're really filling out an assessment, but these are based on opinion and perception. So going over them with a client. I had one instance where I had this very nice young student we had required counseling for her counseling courses. And I scored it, and she scored really high on the psychopathic deviant scale, which did not fit my perception of her. And so we went over the individual questions, and she didn't. English was her second language, and she spoke it pretty well, but some of the questions she didn't understand. So whenever I'm confused about results, I go back and talk about it with the client, have a discussion. And you also have to realize that it's their perception. So sometimes clients can over-report, and sometimes they can under-report. That's why I like having those extra informants. So I will be checking in on the message boards, and any questions you have, be sure to let me know.